Hi, I'm Chris. Some of you might know me as Chris from Adventures in Odyssey, and today I'm here to talk about something I think is really special. It's called Neighborhood Initiative, and it's something that you're going to be interested in hearing about. And with me, sitting right over here, is my good friend and the founder of Neighborhood Initiative. He's going to tell us all about what it is and how it came to be. And I think you guys are going to like this. It's going to connect you to something good. So right here sitting next to me is my good friend, Lynn Cory, founder of Neighborhood Initiative. How are you?
I'm good, Chris. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I love this guy. This is going to be fun. So tell us, what is Neighborhood Initiative?
Neighborhood Initiative, Chris, is a ministry of actually just loving your neighbor. And it comes out of what Jesus commanded us to do, to love our neighbor as ourselves. The Apostle Paul said, the whole law is fulfilled in loving your neighbor as yourself. Yep. And the word initiative that's in the word Neighborhood Initiative, the title, this is something that God initiated. That's why it's there. And it's just a marvelous thing to be able to see how God can begin to love people through those in His church.
Mm-hmm. A neighborhood to me always speaks of like people that you live by, live near. But neighborhood really means far and wide too. So, we all kind of want to connect with people. Right. Connecting in a way that makes us feel belonged, and that we know somebody that lives next to us, and we can care about them, and they can care about us. And I just love the whole feel of this. So,
Chris, the beauty of loving your neighbor is that you love those who, live in your actual neighborhood, yes. Those neighbors. But you also love those people who you pass on a day, and also those people in your own home. Sometimes we don't think about it in that way, but the word neighbor means near one, and there's no one nearer to you than those who live in your actual home.
Yeah, neighborhood is more than just neighborhood. A neighborhood is the people within your span of daily life. Your neighborhood is your people that you run into at the grocery store.
That's right.
People you go to your doctor's office. I mean, the neighborhood it's one of those ways of just connecting.
Chris, just quickly interrupt you there. I came to know what it was to love my neighbor as myself when I was in a seminary class, and Joe Aldridge, he was just a beautiful man, a prince of a man. And he started sharing stories in the seminary class about how he loved his actual neighbors in Newport Beach. And that just captured my attention. And I began to actually do what my wife and I together. We just began to love our actual neighbors back in the mid-70s.
In the 70s.
In the 70s.
You're not that old, are you?
Of course not. But in 1997, I was at an event, a Promise Keepers event at the National Mall, and Coach McCartney, he was the founder of Promise Keepers, and at the end of this grand event in the National Mall, he said, "Go back and win your city." And that led to taking it just from my own neighborhood to where we began to work with pastors, began to see that this thing could actually take off, and actually began to infiltrate cities. And so now we're working with pastors that are involved in loving their own neighbors, and people in their congregation are loving neighbors. It's an amazing movement that God has established.
It's so nice to like to connect lives, and Neighborhood Initiative that's what it's doing. It's sewing people together. I love what it sounds like, it stands for, and what it's doing. So, okay, so let's go with what would be like the vision.
Great question. The vision, just to synthesize it, is this: it's the whole church taking the whole gospel to the whole city, one neighborhood at a time.
That's good.
You like that?
Yeah, I like that. and I use the story about my dad always told me when I was little, something was so big and I didn't know how to approach it and do it, and he would say, "Well, it's like an elephant, Chris. If you're going to eat an elephant, you take it one bite at a time." And so that's what you guys are doing. You're taking one little city at a time, one neighborhood at a time, and before you know it, we're all connected. We're all part of the neighborhood.
That's exactly right. You know, it isn't easy doing this to
Sure.
see the church come together and work corporately in the city together. There's Richard Howerson. He was the chaplain to the Senate, and he had a quote that I really like. And he said, "The church started with men and women who loved Jesus, and their focus was on him. And it moved to Greece, and it became a philosophy. And then it moved to Rome. It became an institution. And then it moved to Europe and became a culture. And then it moved to the United States and became an enterprise." And because we see it as an enterprise or a business, it kind of breaks us up and it creates kind of a competition. But what I see in our day, this is the wonderful thing, is that there's a coming together among pastors in churches today in the United States, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And so it's the whole gospel too. It includes the words and the works of Jesus, not just the words, not just the works, but the two of them together.
Yeah.
And it's working in a whole city. And as you mentioned, one neighborhood at a time. What I see in the future, right now, the pastor tends to be the major focus in the building and so forth. But I see in the future that the focus is going to be on those people who live in neighborhoods.
Good. That's
You
good.
understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So they begin to love their actual neighbors as themselves. And
Makes
this-
sense, huh? Isn't this
and
good?
it begins to spread, and it's like a good virus. Is what
Yeah.
it is. So,
You know, I just feel really excited about this. I think it's time. You know, it's time to do it a little different. And there's a lot of people that don't really feel like they fit. This is a way of just making us one family, and it's not about big organizations and a religious way of doing it. It's more about connecting us to God and His love for us and love for each other. And Neighborhood Initiative is just the perfect ingredient. It's like when you bake a cake, you have to have all the right ingredients to make it taste good. This to me is like a good cake. It's gonna turn out just good.
you know the beauty of it, Chris? Everybody then has a chance to get loved by people in the body of Christ.
It's perfect. See, told you this was gonna be good.